How did you get started in this, field of, technology and art?
Was in a doctorate program for psychology over at UNO before Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
The university was underwater for about a year. So kind of fell in love with doing photography at that time, especially kind of after seeing the wreckage that the hurricane caused and stuff like that. I felt it was actually even more important nowadays to kind of capture, the beauty of areas because, they might be gone the next year.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Above the Legal Limit. I'm Justin Chopin. I have here Alan Zakem. I blew it. I even asked you. Zakem. I like Zakem. I think it's kind of fun. Sounds like
I go by either. Like
it's a verb my way. Like a Zakem.
Yeah, but
Get 'em.
with the Zakem, you can like do the Rock'em Zakem.
All right. It's probably both either way. I guess it works either way. My apologies. Alan Zakem. Alan's a local artist who uses technology in your medium. Is that, did I say it right?
I'm first of all a photographer and digital artist. So okay. I start off with photography but I've really jumped into, a lot of the traditional photographers were really reluctant to get into kind of, the Photoshop and the digital and all that kind of stuff. I kind of embraced it early on and really jumped into.
Is that like the code for photographers? Like when I mean code, I mean like a code of conduct where it's like, no, you have to do it all with light and timing, and you can't use digital. Is that the idea?
Kind of like what happened
is not gentlemanly the other way.
Yeah, kind of. And I started, I was doing art shows around, and I've been doing it now for about 18 years and just kind of put myself out there. But, I've also took courses in photography, and, one of my teachers who was kind of giving me a backhanded compliment, but was like, at least, whether I like your work or not, at least I can always tell it's yours.
Oh, that sounds like the kind of compliment I always used to. I've never had a real compliment. They're usually always backhanded.
Yeah. So a lot of the old timers, are more traditionalists, and I did get criticized some for kind of really pushing the images past what they would consider acceptable with, I guess, on the academic side of it, like or traditional side.
It's art.
Exactly.
If you can duct tape a banana to the wall and say that that's art,
exactly.
You can spend countless hours perfecting like this image. I saw this guy on Instagram just the other day. Maybe it was you. I don't know. And but it was a beautiful picture. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely beautiful. And this guy was saying how it took him, and it was a crazy number of hours. 300 hours to do this one. This image, and it was the use of digital technology with the photograph. And the color and the depth, was unreal. Yeah, it was so real that it was unreal. Well, it was gorgeous.
That's the thing. Like, I feel a normal photograph really does not capture, I guess, like the beauty of nature, like or beauty of a city scene. Like the colors are usually kind of bland, and I just feel it does not capture the energy. And with spending all that time, kind of basically digitally painting and doing other things to the image, I feel it more represents, even though it's a little bit surrealistic, I feel it still more represents like truly how you feel when you go into nature and like see a really beautiful scene.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you and everything you're saying. So I have this picture on my phone. I suppose the iPhone sometimes if all the conditions are right, we'll really capture these amazing shots.
Definitely.
I was out duck hunting several years ago, and duck hunting is like the It's like the least gentlemanly sport there is. It only lasts like 15 minutes. You know, it's like the only 15 minutes that you're sober for the whole weekend. And, you know, I'm out there. None of my buddies are out there. Everybody's like, forget it. It's not even worth it. For 15
You out
minutes.
there by
But
yourself?
I'm out there with like my buddy's dad.
Oh,
right? Like, I'm like, we're like the only two. And I, you know, I like to get out there. It's beautiful. You know,
Oh, yeah.
It's and so, right, it's just as, it's not daylight. It's like just as light, that first light starts to emerge across the horizon. You're not even, you know, the sun, like we're not even talking about sunrise. And the ducks will start moving. Mm-hmm. And so then, you know, you're just like in that moment. And then, you know, literally, like, I'm not joking, it lasts, you know, 20 minutes, right? I mean, 20 minutes, because then the sun's up, they're all gone where we are. And then I look up and I see the most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen. And I was like blown over by this sunrise. Now, a photograph of that sunrise would never make me stop in my tracks. It would never, like, I audibly gasped when I saw it. I immediately took a picture. Shockingly, the phone did a really good job of it. Yeah. If I had a camera, you know, like old school, and like took a picture of it, it would just be like,
would not do it justice. Yeah, you know, the phones actually nowadays do a really good job of, you know, kind of translating it more into how you would see it in real life. You know, they're not great if you're trying to blow it up large on a big canvas or anything like that yet, but they do, you know, if you catch it with the right light and everything, they do a pretty good job nowadays.
Yeah. But the emotion, like the beauty of it, the colors, the depth, you know, the lighting, like none of that could be captured from not by me. Maybe a professional photographer really could, but I certainly couldn't. And I have to think that, you know, it's the technology allows us to capture that sort of that same like holy crap, I can't, you know, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Yeah. You know, my wife and I were traveling in Norway, and we were there in the winter. We didn't realize, very foolish. Now I know. So we didn't realize that the sun doesn't rise above the Arctic in the winter. And you know, I
like dark nonstop.
Yeah. So like I think intellectually, like I know that that's a thing, right? Yeah. I know that the sun doesn't set in parts of Alaska in the summer, and I know that it doesn't rise in parts of Alaska in the winter. But as you're like vacation planning, and you're thinking like, what are the things I'm going to do? Like, what sort of like snow sports and meals and
I guess you can't
what
really
yurt will I be sleeping in? None of it. The whole time I'm not like, and it'll be dark, right? Like no one said it. She didn't say it. I didn't say it. No one thought about it. We just moved on our merry way. We were more worried about like what, you know, like what airline.
I feel it still would be interesting to experience that though. Like
really cool. Yeah. Really trippy to be in the dark. You know, it took, we did not get used to it. My wife refused to drive, so I had to drive the whole way. Yeah. So like everything we did was like on a frozen fjord somewhere in like a Peugeot, you know, in the pitch dark. Right. But.
So was it like pitch dark, like really, really dark?
Yeah. I mean, it's like nighttime dark. Now, from like 10 or 11 to like noon, maybe, there was just that like sort of almost like I said, like you could shoot a duck. Like there was just that little bit of light, and then it's totally gone again. You know, it's over. Better luck next time. But we were there in the winter, and there were the Northern Lights. So we were like, and we weren't there again because we're idiots. But like we weren't there to see the Northern Lights. Everybody I tell us was like, well, you must have been there to see the Northern Lights. And I was like, what now?
Wait, what? What lights?
And so, but it was a perk, right? Had they not been Northern Lights, it wouldn't have made a difference. That wasn't the reason for the trip. And we got to see the Northern Lights. Now, to the naked eye, here's the trick. To the naked eye, the Northern Lights don't look anything like the movie Frozen. It's all a bunch of nonsense. But to the iPhone
looks amazing.
Will bring those emerald greens out. To me, it was like cloudy and hazy. You know, and then some guy's like, hey, those are Northern Lights. I was like, are you sure? They don't look.
See, that's one of my bucket list things is the Northern Lights.
Well, I just ruined it for you.
Yeah.
Well, bring a camera. Bring your phone. It was really pretty. What I think my biggest takeaway was that some of those amazing images that you see really are like
even more spectacular than
because somebody actually it was like there was like time lapsing here. There's like the saturation of light and all those other fancy words, and I don't really know what they mean, but I string them together like I do. Like someone did that to get this gorgeous image, because otherwise you're just standing there and it's just like a little bit of haze kind of out in the distance.
See, I was actually expecting more like, you know, in your face color and
I mean, we were there in January. It's entirely possible that, you know, in deeper winter, because that's not really the time of year when they're supposed to be there. So it's entirely possible that when you get to like February and March, then they're really present. But not for us.
And I'm not sure why. Like lately, I guess over the past couple of years, they've been more intense lately. There's been more northern light. Like last year, I thought
people are talking about it a lot. Yeah. Like just recently, someone was saying on like the North Shore, they were like, see the Northern Lights in Mandeville. I was like, I don't believe you. Those are the Southern Lights. That's the South Pole stuff. I wouldn't mess with those lights.
Yeah, that's like some Cajun doing some weird fireworks
right.
stuff.
The neoprene plant, you know, down upriver, right? You know, DACA, when the DACA plant. That's some EPA stuff.
Yep.
So how did you get started? You know, in this, you know, field of, you know, technology and art?
Kind of accidentally. So, I mean, my background, I have a finance degree, then was in a doctorate program for psychology over at UNO before Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
And, you know, the university was underwater for about a year. And kind of took a break. And I always grew up doing art. My mom's an art teacher. And kind of for that year, I was kind of working out some stuff. So, you know, she's like, well, you should get back into doing some art. So kind of fell in love with doing photography at that time, especially, you know, kind of after seeing the wreckage that the hurricane caused and stuff like that. And I was kind of trying to figure out, like, find beauty, you know, in the area. And you know, I felt it was actually even more important nowadays to kind of capture, you know, the beauty of areas because, you know, they might be gone the next year. You know, so whether it's like the old oak trees around here, the old buildings, or Mardi Gras, or, you know, I just kind of felt it was important to capture all that.
It's true. You know, I mean, look, I mean, you go, I'll never forget, I was driving down St. Charles just the other day. It used to not be that bright.
Yeah.
It was a much shadier street.
Oh, yeah. Like half the oak trees are gone.
Half the oak trees are gone, right?
Yeah.
So the whole canopy, like half the canopy's gone.
Exactly.
I was just literally thinking about this last week because I guess I was picking up one of my kids or something. I was having to go take my kid to the dentist. So I happened to be driving at like, you know, noon or something down St. Charles. And I was thinking about before Katrina, how completely different it was. Audubon Park's the same way. I'm like, so many of those trees are gone. And they're beautiful. You know, they're 250 years old, 300 years old.
Exactly, like hanging down to the ground.
And a lot of them are gone.
Yeah.
You know, and they go plant like
small
like,
little.
Here you go. And I was like, all right, well, see you in 300 years.
Well, that's that's how it's been around Jackson Square lately. Actually, you know, unfortunately, you know, there was that accident in Jackson Square with the oak tree, and that's a lot of times where I set up is in that area, and you know that oak tree used to provide great shade right over there. Now there's like no shade whatsoever.
Just,
I mean they planted another oak tree, but it'll provide shade in like 200 years or so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. But you know, there were a lot of artists in that time. I was here for Katrina, right? And so there was this immediate renaissance afterwards of people wanting that connection, because many of us there's like diaspora, right? Like, you know, we're forced. I mean, I spent 6 months in Houston, and people wanted to come home.
Oh yeah.
And so there was, you know, that energy. But we still have a little, not like it was, but, but you know, it's still out there a little bit. But a lot of artists were doing really cool things.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I got started with the digital stuff too. Was so there was a friend of the family that was a photographer here for like 60, 70 years. And he had photos of the old Bucktown area. And, you know, Bucktown was pretty much totally wiped out.
Right.
And he wanted to somebody to work with him to rejuvenate those images. So I kind of really taught myself Photoshop, and, at that time, there was only, Photoshop wasn't quite as advanced, so it took a lot of work to rejuvenate those images. And then we would do art festivals together and sell those images, and, everybody was, ecstatic to be able to get those images of the old places they remembered. And that's really where I got started with the digital aspect and the printing aspect. Taught myself I took courses on how to do printing and different aspects like that to be able to, rejuvenate these images.
That's cool. What was that restaurant that was out there? I was just thinking you were the one. It was like sheared right off the piers. I haven't.
Yeah, I've got an image of it.
I know. It's driving me nuts. Any other day of the week, I would have known the name of it. But I haven't had it was like the only place where you could go and get like boiled crabs.
Well, that whole harbor though,
all those places.
Yeah, they had a couple like shacks over there.
Yeah,
too.
Oh wow, it'll come to me later. So you talk about the purchase of art. So I'm curious, how does the business of art, like how does that work? Do you have like a gallery or?
I've done galleries before. I used to have a gallery on Magazine Street. I've done French Quarter Gallery. I truthfully love Jackson Square. Like it's not for everybody. Like you have to have very tough skin.
Yeah.
It's
Wait, I've got 2 paintings that I bought in this office from Jackson Square.
Oh, nice.
So one right behind him. Well, no, we frosted the windows. We had to frost the windows. It was getting really annoying. Anytime you'd have like a deposition in here.
Yeah, people were like staring at you.
Yeah,
and fogging up the glass.
One day we were having like a particularly difficult topic for a deposition. It was an abuse case, and people were just like, I was like, I think it might be time to frost the glass. So,
yeah.
So through that impenetrable force, there's one over there. It's kind of a cool guy. It's like a Russian artist, and he does like I'm going to call it modern surrealism. Because I'm not an artist, so I can call it anything I want.
Does he do like the drop canvases and like he paints right there on the square?
So he said he painted it for somebody and they never picked it up. And so he sold it on Jackson Square. And I remember walking around one day, I was like, I love this. It's really pretty. And so I bought it, and then I went and had it framed. It used to be in my house. And then when I opened the firm, I was like, I'm bringing this to the office.
Oh, yeah.
And then behind you, again, you can't see it, so but this is behind you is like a better example of that post-Katrina sort of Renaissance art. It's like somebody, and this was another one on Jackson Square. This guy was taking old windows from houses that had been torn down, and then he was painting a scene on the windows. And so it's kind of neat. It's like an old wooden, probably got like leaded paint, window.
Totally.
Yeah, don't eat the paint if you go by and look at it. But yeah, so
don't lick the painting.
Right? Yeah, don't lick my painting, please. I'll make you sign a waiver first. But yeah, like Jackson Square, I think it's a cool place to it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot of fun, and like I feel it's a kind of my social scene too. Like so, it's almost like you get to hang out and sell artwork at the same time. Of course. One of the problems with that is like, a lot of the artists or some of the other people feel it's like too much of a hangout, and they'll just want to sit there and talk to you all day and like drink and, party all day. But like, I am there to do business. So like a lot of times I have to like be like,
all right,
yeah.
I'll talk to you, Bill.
Exactly.
But some of those guys have been out there my whole life.
Oh yeah.
A few of those caricature artists I know have been there my whole life because I've seen the same paintings, like or drawings. They'll have like the same drawing of something you can tell it was like done in the 70s.
Yeah.
The woman's got like that. Like
well,
that
so
look.
I was in a gallery with Barbara Yoakum. Barbara Yoakum's actually been out there the longest of any of the other artists, over 50 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's great. Like she does like these mermaid paintings. Does a lot of like. Kind of these New Orleans woman series, great painter. But yeah, she likes it out there too. There was a time actually in the city where, so I don't know if you know much of the politics that goes out there in Jackson Square. But for a while, I wasn't even allowed to sell my work out there.
Yeah.
There was
like a huge crackdown on all of that, right? It was like locked in. You couldn't get the permits and.
Well, there was that, but there was actually they were trying to ban anything print based, so they wanted to all be hand painted, which totally kind of destroyed the square for a while, because what happened was people like Barbara Yoakum, who's an oil painter and takes 2 months to create an original, she wasn't able to sell her reproductions, to be able to make a living while working on a new oil. So it actually ran most of the kind of better artists off the square. And that's actually when she opened a gallery. And that's when I went into the gallery space with her.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so.
Is that still in effect, or did they?
No. So it actually went all the way up to the state Supreme Court. So.
That sounds like the kind of thing we would litigate the hell out of.
Oh, yeah. No, the city spent like $800,000 on it.
Sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Over what?
Exactly. So basically, the courts ruled that it was a First Amendment right to be able to, since it's a public square, to be able to, kind of sell what type of art that you wanted. That the city couldn't really say what art is.
What is art?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, you're saying I have small sculptures. I can't sell a sculpture. Right? Like, what are they really trying to prevent? They don't want posters? Like, is that what are they really trying to prevent?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what they were trying to prevent. They're pretty much, they're trying to...
The pill's worse than the disease then. So it's like, you got a couple of
exactly,
guys selling posters. People aren't going to want to buy that anyways, by the way.
Well, that's the thing. Like, they really do want kind of unique, good art when they go around Jackson Square. Like, they're not going to, if somebody's, just there selling posters, they're not going to want to buy it.
Yeah.
They can go to any of the, poster shop or gift shops.
And all those places are big, I mean, be real. Like, every one of those shops is owned by the same person. Right?
Yeah.
And he sells plenty of those, stupid T-shirts and posters. So if you really want one, you don't have to go to Jackson Square, right? You can
exactly.
just go to get...
Anywhere.
You can get your T-shirt that matches it, that says I love ketchup.
Yeah.
Or crazy one, crazy two, or thing one, or whatever.
Thing one, thing two, and
we talk about this a lot.
Or drunk one.
Up. Yeah, right. Yeah. So when I was a kid, you grew up here?
No, grew up in Tampa, Florida, but I've been here 22 years.
Oh, well, that's close enough.
Yeah.
So, when I was a kid, we would go down to the French Market, and they would sell actual things there, produce.
Yeah.
And you could get, pumpkins there in the fall and stuff like that. And now, I mean, it wasn't just Katrina, but certainly ever since Katrina, you can forget
it's just
it.
all
it's all
imported.
Prepackaged nonsense.
Yeah, and it's sad because they keep on trying to say that they're going to try to make it better. But the thing is,
it lacks authenticity now.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There's nothing you can do to make it better because it'll always be inauthentic. And what was neat about it was that it was old. And that it had been there for a million years, and that you could still go and buy local. There's no shortage of Louisiana farmers. I can go to my local grocery store and buy, local fruits and vegetables and do all the time.
Yep.
But I can't go to the French Market and do it. All I can do there is get 50 million different hot sauces that each have graphic names, like the butt tickler or something.
Well, the thing is, in good old New Orleans fashion, it just so horribly ran. None of the good. I've done it a couple times, but none of the good artists want to put up with the French Market. They're just assholes to all of us, and so we just don't want to deal with it.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and they keep on saying they're going to try to attract us back and stuff like that, and then they never do.
No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cities usually. I mean, I love New Orleans. It's my favorite city in the world, but as you know, it's not always ran to the best degree here. So with the Jackson Square thing, for example, so with how the ordinance is written, so I was working with one of the arts attorneys here. Mind blank now. Ashley Keaton. I don't know if you're familiar.
I'm not.
She's a law
There's
professor.
A lot of us.
Oh yeah. She's a law professor over at Loyola, but she runs an art clinic. for artists, like basically free legal advice for artists. But when they were doing the whole art ban thing too, she was working with us the print ban. She was working with us to try to get that changed too. But with how the ordinance is written, it says all artwork has to be produced primarily by hand without use of a mechanical process. But if you look up the term mechanical process,
what does that even mean? So you can't
pencil
sell
is
prints?
So a pencil is actually considered a mechanical process if you
Mechanical pencil
or mechanical device. Yeah.
Right.
Or like a paintbrush is actually like considered a mechanical device.
But like a lithograph or like
Yeah.
that you would do in
block.
stone or something
Yeah.
like that. Like you would run prints of that.
Yeah.
So you can't sell that?
Yeah. So they were
That's stupid.
exactly. It was
That doesn't make any sense.
no.
All right. Well, so I've actually got an art installation coming to my house tomorrow night.
Oh,
I don't know,
cool.
just happenstance. Do you know Tony Mose?
No, not
So
familiar.
he's in the quarter. He's got a place on Royal, I think.
What block?
And
Do you know?
what's that now?
Which block of Royal do you know?
Not.
I suck with remembering names
Yeah.
but for some reason, like I can picture,
I think you would see
like-
his stuff. Like he'll do like the face with the crowns, and like a black background. And his wife Tracy Mose also has like some art. And so we had this big wall that needed art, and so he's like, "Well, I'll paint you something." And so everyone's like, well, "I can't wait to see it." And I was like, "Me too," because I don't even know what it is. Like, I don't even know what it's gonna look like. So
you
I don't know what's gonna happen.
Much like free reign, like
I was just it lasted like a 5-minute conversation. He's like, "Yeah, I got it." And I was like, "What did we just buy?" Like,
Exactly
I don't
that.
even know. It could be anything. It could like show up and be like seagulls. I'm like, shit. Oh, man, I hate seagulls. Like I have no idea what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
But it'll be tomorrow night. I'll let you know. It could be. Hopefully, it's not. Hopefully, it's not like a flock of seagulls. Now he does like modern, non-representational kind of art.
Yeah, I think I'm picturing like who he is.
You would know some of his art if you saw it. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know Royal Street that way. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just because I grew up here, so I can't remember. Like he's in the 300 block, but I know Royal Street like this. Like you park further down, and then you mosey towards Canal Street. So
Yeah.
I would say he's like, a third of the way from my mosey, which would
Okay.
probably put him within
Around,
a
like,
couple of
500
blocks
block.
from the cathedral.
Yeah.
On the Esplanade side, like somewhere like around.
Okay,
that.
like that's what I'm
quarter,
thinking. Actually,
yeah.
closer to the 800 block, probably like 700 to 800.
Yeah, I don't. That's
Yeah, Cathedral.
I only know in
600.
Mosey in terms of, like
Mosey.
of like a slow weaving in on the sidewalk in the street sort of
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah, so when I was in the Gallery of Barbara, we were 800 block, and I guess primarily from like the 600 block to 900 block is where kind of like most of the local artists have their galleries.
Okay.
Closer to Canal Street, it's more the bigger name galleries or national galleries.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. Right. Like, what's that guy that does all like used to do like the French Parisian scenes that were always really pretty? Had that sort of like real Toulouse-Lautrec looking thing going on.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But I always used to want one of those, and I didn't really have money to buy art. I still don't have money to buy art. These guys are crazy. But my wife and I were just talking recently, like, oh, good thing I didn't buy one of those, because I don't know that like in those that was 20 years ago. That was who I was, and now I'm just kind of like, oh, that's still pretty. It's just tastes change, right?
Oh yeah,
like your taste buds change every 10 years. Your like opinion on art changes
definitely.
sometimes.
And I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing to sometimes rotate out your artwork. You can enjoy something for a little while, then either try to resell it or just switch it with something different.
Right. I mean, it's not like a Monet. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, be for real. It's like you can like it and then not like it, but sometimes it'll come back and then you like it again.
Oh, sure.
My mom studied art, or wanted to study art in college, but her father wouldn't let her do it, and so he was like, no, you have to have a degree that you can like get a job.
Yeah.
And so she is like a business major. But I've got like one of her original paintings that she, her freshman year of college.
Yeah.
And we have it hung actually in my wife's office now at the house.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. It's like a really pretty painting. I remember it was like hung in my house like my entire childhood. And
Yeah.
we have that. So my mom's like, well, here, you need to fill this wall. You can hang this. So there is a timelessness to it.
Yeah.
An emotional connection to it.
And I think, my parents were kind of like that too. I think that's why I went into finance.
Right.
Especially my mom, she's a great artist, but, she was never able to really make any money with her art. I mean, she was an art teacher, so made money that way. But it, my dad's a doctor, so it's more, you're supposed to go into
right,
like that type of thing.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. My parents are both lawyers, right?
Yeah.
So I was also studying psychology, but I wanted to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. But if you have enough fun becoming a doctor, you don't get to be one.
Yeah.
Right. And then you got to go be like a lawyer or something else. Going
like having too much fun to be a doctor.
Yeah. They're like, we don't really want you to do this. But so my progression to the practice of law is really sort of by happenstance. Never even occurred to me to practice law. I was the 16th lawyer in my family to be sworn in the bar, and never once until I was like 23 did I ever think, or 20, I guess I was 23, to be like, I should be a lawyer. Like, it just never occurred to me. And then I was working, and there was like a contract, and I had to review this contract, and I was like, hey, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, well, you're kind of an idiot. Like, what? He's like, it never occurred to you? And I was like, no, it never did. I was like, why, you think I should? And he's like, yeah, I think you should.
I mean, I can see it being interesting, especially.
It was sort of like a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
You don't always know what's like right in front of you. You don't always know yourself. It's easy to see other people. It's really hard to know yourself. So, it's hard.
Wait, so were you going into psychology before?
Yeah, like I was supposed to get a PhD in psychology. Like that's what I was going to do. Like I used to like play around with Freud and, that kind of, my psychology background's like not really more of an applied psychology, much more like, like Heidegger and like more like the philosophy side. Qualitative.
Yeah.
But then you just, one day, I don't know, you just have this moment of like, I should be an artist or I should be a lawyer. It doesn't happen immediately, right? Like you didn't just wake up. I mean, you might have understood art and had like application to it, but you weren't like, I wouldn't imagine that you rolled out of bed and were like, and today I'm an artist.
Well, that's one of the things like everybody always asks, like, have you always wanted to be an artist? Yeah. Like, and like, no, I haven't always wanted to be an artist. Like, I didn't know I would like being an artist. I didn't know I would be able to make a good living, being an artist. It just kind of happened to where I was like, to the point where I was like, oh, I want to give this a shot.
Self-discovery can always make you feel very foolish.
Yeah.
Right. We know ourselves the least sometimes because we pay the least amount of attention.
Yeah.
And that's what's so fun about life sometimes is that you wake up one day and you can be reflective on your life. And now it's so clear. You're like, well, of course I want to be an artist.
Yeah.
Or of course I'm a lawyer. But 20 years ago, it wasn't so clear cut.
Sure. And I'm sure you're happy with your decision now. Like,
yeah, I think it's great now.
Yeah.
It sucked the first 10 years. Don't do what I did.
I mean, that's how being an artist was too. The first 5 years I was dirt poor. Like,
yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't dirt poor, to be fair, because I was still a lawyer. But I had a lot of debt. So I was like revenue high, profit low.
Yeah.
Right? So I had a lot of law debt. So the difference between
I was
a dirt poor artist and a lawyer with like 150 in law debt is like kind of the same thing. Maybe there's more. Maybe I had more credit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm getting the this, which means we went on too long. But hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Tell our listeners where they can find your art and you.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, not your address, but like,
I mean, they're welcome to come by the house and look at some artwork too.
Yeah.
But generally out at Jackson Square, I'm out there every weekend, pretty much. I'll be out of town this weekend, but most weekends I'm out at Jackson Square. But also find me on my website, zakemart.com, and
zakemart.com. Okay.
Yep. And I've got a studio in the Bywater. But yeah, you can find all the information on zakemart.com.
I'm going to check it out. I want to see it. Art.com. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.